Good afternoon. Hello, Sweden. Woohoo! Well, this is my first time, so I had to make it a bit loud and clear. So yeah, let's get the energy. So today we talk about web performance, and for 75% of the people, I think the web speed is the most important. Simply because, like when the page is loading, you cannot actually do anything. You still wait for it, essentially. So you cannot appreciate the design. Doesn't matter how beautiful it is. You cannot click a button, and yeah, essentially. So when a site feels fat, people just don't use it, and they talk about it. What I mean is like anyone use X, Twitter. Okay, maybe you haven't seen it. But like last year, people was really talk about this side. Let's notice how fast it is. You click something, it's feel instant. It's interesting. It's like, it's never seen anything. Like you start to type on the URL and then it just start to appear the result. It was super cool. And like when I using this kind of experience, you don't measure it on Chrome DevTool. You just feel fast, right? It's like you feel good. That's it. That's what people were sharing. And I think as developer, we talk about web performance as like improving the metric, make the size fast, engineering perspective. But there's the another story. There's another half of the story where it say make the slow process seem fast, and that is interesting because that's how it's looking in the practice, right? So imagine you had a long process. It's gonna take 20 seconds to analyze a bit like Lysol. And you notice after a while, it starts to show you some hint. And then as you see the hint, it will make you stay. You don't just closing it. You stay because of there's some text randomly appearing on the UI. And this make you feel those seconds faster, even though it is still the same kind of the same time put into places. So I just take a screenshot so that if just in case you didn't notice on the video, that's how it look like. So after maybe like 10 seconds, it start to show you some hint that's kind of keep you stay. And that's called perceived performance. And it's not measured by DevTools or anything. It was a feeling. It was subjective. It's feeling fast for you is different for me, and in different scenario. But if you feel something is fast, isn't it fast for you? Doesn't matter how it tell. If it's like 10 seconds, you kind of say, "Oh, it look okay to me," then it's okay, right? That's what I'm trying to say. That's perceived performance. That is not the metric that we can measure, but it's impact the user. So take this example. That's the elevator problem. That's very classic. People complain that it's slow. So you look into it from the engineering perspective. You try to improve the speed of the elevator. And then maybe there's other approach to look into it. Like people complain that the wait is long. Because of that, you're starting to add some mirror so that it's kind of kill your time, play some music instead of just super quiet. And then because of that, you don't really notice the wait anymore. I mean, it's still there. It's still the same time that we are waiting. But because there's something that occupies your time, so you don't feel as long anymore. So that's the difference between like the real speed and like what you feel. And on the web, we could essentially do the same thing. There's usually 4 areas we talk about. There's like reducing overall load time. There's making site usable quickly. There's smoothness and interactivity. And the last one, perceived performance. So we are mainly looking into the last one today. So all of this text, I will just, not making it up, but you can find all of the reference online. So today, in the next half an hour or so, we mainly look into 3 techniques. The smart loading spinner, smarter, I call it. Then there's instant experience. It's like using cache. Last thing, optimistic update, where you can really applying right away after the talk, I hope, and how to really make it feel faster without rewriting a lot, without a lot of refactoring. So before we get into the detail, my name is Trung. I'm the Google developer expert in Angular. I'm not sure how many of you still Angular in, in the real application. And I'm also the Google developer expert in web, mainly performance. So I do speak about modern development practice and focus on making the web fast and delightful. Um, as you can see, that's a map. I was originally from Vietnam. Then I'm now living in Singapore. And I took a long flight to come to Sweden. That is really long. Yeah. It's like the jet lag was crazy. As I wake up at like 2 a.m., couldn't go back to sleep. So be easy with me during the talk. Then a little bit about Vietnam. It's just some food photo. I hope you had a chance to try it in Sweden. But I wanted to bring you a fun fact today because we are at Sweden. So that's like, what do you think is the most famous New Year song in Vietnam? If you know it, you know it. You don't know it, obviously you don't know, but it's a super interesting, like that's Abba Happy New Year's. And I don't know how it's becoming super popular in Vietnam. It is not popular in the rest of the world. I think it's like Vietnam is contribute to like the play, like Spotify play in Abba. And it's like everywhere during the New Year's, like everywhere. Like people singing it in karaoke, on the corner, on the national television. It was crazy. Super popular. And then to show you how strong the connection is, like that's the Swedish ambassador. And then that is the Vietnamese version. I want to play the first 20 seconds so that you kind of hear our language. And that is the tradition.
Xin chúc chúc mỗi nhà cùng nhau thăng hân hoan đón xuân Nam cứ đi Nam mỗi xanh đón thêm bao tin vui nơi nơi.
Okay. Yeah. I had the talk. I still need to do the talk thing. So yeah, that's essentially the connection between the two countries. So yes, that's amazing. And I had more things to talk about Singapore. But I would like to invite you to join my talk tomorrow where I share more things about Singapore. Otherwise, I will not have time to go through my talk today. Then I'm with Ascenda. That's why I wear the shirt. I hope my boss is happy. Anyone can help me take a photo and share it to him. And hope I get the raise. But we bring like loyalty, capability to bank and partner around the world. So back to agenda. That's the most important. The first thing we look into the smart loading spinner. And when I was starting my career 7-8 years ago, I do think that I talk was right. Super simple. You show a loading spinner for everything, right? When you load the data, you show something to make sure that thing is going on. And my boss was asking, why is it so slow? And as the responsible front-end engineer, the only one in the team, I was looking into the data. And it looked okay. It was like 200 milliseconds. How slow it can be. And it looked okay, really, like personally. And the code, that's the code, right? You don't really need to understand everything, but it's React. I hope it's accessible. Originally in Angular, but yeah, that's why I moved to React, accessible. So there's 3 steps, and that's the loading data, some stuff. And simply you setting the Boolean for loading, and then you fetch the data, you set the data, and that's it, right? When it's finished, you're gonna do this loading to false, as simple as that. And then the conversation go like that. I was okay, and then he said, he feel it is slow. And that is the most important factor because he feels, and how can I explain it? I couldn't. And then the question he had for me is more like, right, if the API is so fast, why do we need to show the spinner? Because it's really fast. And then most of our users is in Singapore. And it is one of the fastest internet connection in the world. It's like so fast. You couldn't believe it. But the thing is, like, he has the question, like, why we show it forever? Why can't you just, if it's fast, then you can delay it a little bit. If it's slow, you can keep it. Because, I show you one more time. You click in, it's loading. As you click out, it's loading. It's just normal. It's most of the application normal. And then yes, that's my reason. It could be slower for the user. Could be like back-end server. Could be network condition. We had to have a spinner. And then that is the compromise that we made at the end. Can you just wait 300 milliseconds? That is the number that we get into. And then 300 milliseconds I think it's reasonable. And we didn't do anything like mind blown here. It's like simply delaying it. The API time, everything is the same. We're just simply delaying it. And of course, how do you do it? Well, we're gonna do some React stuff, right? You're gonna introduce a set timeout, 300 milliseconds, which means that it is gonna show only after 300 milliseconds, right? If it is fast enough, it finished, you clear the timer, which means it never had a chance to set to true at all. And then which means the spinner never show. As simple as that. And if it takes longer, then you call set loading trues, and you still had a fallback, set it to false to hide it. So in practice, that's how it looked like. I'm not sure if you feel anything. It's just the spinner is not there when it is fast enough. But what if it's taking a bit longer? Oh, sure. Let's take a look. You had it. Right. The thing is it is not triggering immediately. It does have the safeguard for you. So that, okay, for the last 5% of the user, if it's slow, then sure, they will see something. They will be engaged. And then that is one of the case study. There's a talk from Lok. He said they use spinner, the competitive doesn't use it at all. And then they check the request wasn't slower. But the guy said, we got a lot of feedback that our site is so slow. So I think that do have an impact as you just see the spinner over and over. And you might feel it's a bit slower. I know it just sounds like in our use case, but I'll show you the famous app in Sweden, which is Spotify. That is normal speed. You navigate between playlists, between things. You don't feel anything. For a simple reason that, of course, Spotify API is so fast. But do you see something? They don't really show you a spinner and then it's flashing and then it's gone. Do you notice this? It takes a moment to load, but it's not there. The spinner is not being shown. And then that is when it feels slow. You go in, there's a delay. It is not immediate. That is the point. Like we use it every day, but we never notice. Like if you need to change between album and then playlist, and then it's gonna keep showing the spinner every time. You'll be like, can I just close it? Should I delete it or something? I think that is a practical use case. That simply you delay showing the spinner. It does have on a perceived performance. The user will feel it's a bit different. Next thing. You might ask, okay, bro, it's like the API is fast. It's like 300 milliseconds, you can delay it. But ours is slower, it's a lot slower. Like 10 seconds. What can I do? You need to aggregate a lot of data from different places. Is it the right way? Yeah. And then it's gonna take some time from third-party use, partner, right? And what can you do? The simple answer is you can still engage the user somehow. And somehow might be, is it the one? Okay, so that is like Coursera. And then you noticing that this thing was not that fast. It was maybe like about 10 seconds. And it's similar to the Lighthouse example we saw earlier. It's kind of showing you this text, like, please stay with us. We are there. We are very close. Don't close the tab yet. And just simply because of that, you might stay. Otherwise, you might close. I don't know. Sometimes you are frustrated because of something. Let's just close it, right? That's one thing. Another example is from the website. So this one, if you don't show anything, it looks broken. If you don't show the spinner, right? That's why it's like most of the places, most of the website, we show the spinner. Because if you don't show anything, it feels broken. But if you show a generic one, sometimes it's too long. And look what Emirates is doing. So when you search for the flight, it is not just the normal spinner, right? You see there's some text on the UI, and then there's a plane flying around. I don't know if it's have on a perceived performance at all, but that is like comparison side by side. And then it is gonna be the same second. It's gonna take more than 20 seconds, if I remember. Or 15, yeah, about 15 seconds. But the right side does give you that, okay, this side seems to work a little bit harder. There's something going on. Like there's really, the plane is flying, not just a generic spinner. I don't know how to explain it. It's so weird. It's like, you notice something? It's a spinner. And there's a rule for it. The animation should be fast. Yeah, right. Like now you can feel the difference between the two. But you shouldn't show the animation that feels slow because you say, really, how slow is it? And so the takeaway from it is like, that is a long, like, I know, you don't have to read through the whole thing. I highlight it for you. Okay, sure. Is it clearer? Okay. So yeah, essentially it's a, if an operation is gonna take long, you can still make it engage by showing spinner, showing some hint, if it's appropriate. Sometimes it's like showing a joke. And that's it. That's the whole thing, really. Simply sometimes you show a hint, a text, it does have making the user stay. Simple like that. So I think that is the first thing. We look into the second one. That's like the useful of having a cache data on your application. And I'm going to show you some quick thing. Right? That's what I do before. I had a list of something. We call it a vehicle. You had a list of something, and then you will ask, actually, when I go into the detail page, if I'm going to reuse the same data, can I just catch it? And then that's complicated. You don't have to understand. But essentially, like you store it somewhere. And then the code looks super simple. Now you're going to have this array somewhere. All right, global variable, I don't know, doesn't matter, somewhere. You're going to add data as you are loading the list. And as you fetching a detail vehicle, a detail object, you want to try to find using an ID from the cache data that you had, simply. And that's how easy to introducing cache to your application. But, I mean, the problem with computer science is not like, how do you cache data? But it's, how do you invalidate the cache? It's like, how long I can rely on it before I need to refresh it again. Let's say you had like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, or like when you go into the page, there's 2, 3, 4 requests in parallel. How do you deal with it? And all of that is like the hidden complexity. That is very hard to implement it right. And so the solution is like, okay, sure, if you wanted to use cache data, use the library. And I want to just take two from React ecosystem. I hope it's familiar. It's React query. There's SWR. Similar. They do the same thing. And so, okay, we look into the code again. I know that is heavy coding section. So, you have certain state, and then you gonna do something. You're gonna try to fetch the data. You wanna set it. You wanna set an error. You set the loading. That is quite basic. It's quite typical. And then, okay, I do it again. It is, can you track where the letter move? You can. It just makes it look cool. But essentially, with React query, you replace everything with use query. I know now it looks super classic, but you replace everything. All of the code you written before, all of the state that you introduce, you replace it with use query. You put it a key that is crucial so that you can fetch it again from the cache. That is like a cache key into like in the dictionary somewhere. And then you need to provide a callback function that is gonna return a promise in query function. How simple it is. It's gonna return a promise. It doesn't have to be going to the HTTP server. It could be anything asynchronous. And then when you are using it, right, you was default, you get error is loading data, all of this coming from React query for free. And then there's a lot of handling under the hood. And you don't have to set those data manually anymore. That's the point. And then I was, like migrating the data that I had before, fetching a list and then fetching the detail using React query, and that's how it looks. I hope it's clear enough. So I was opening a list. There's one API call. I go into one. Yeah, sure. There's another API call. There's no string. I go back to the list. Okay, sure. There's another API call. And then I go into one again. And that is a crucial moment. And you can see, like, I mean, maybe it's not obvious enough, but the data is there when the request is being made. Right? It's not like you show in the spinner and then you wait and then you display. There's some data coming from somewhere. And then that is a default behavior of React query. So it still store it on the cache, but it is marked as stale immediately. It's not fresh. You had it on the cache, but it is not fresh. And that's how it looks on the dev tool. It's just stale. Stale, I mean, in English, if you don't speak in English, stale is like not fresh, essentially. And you can still get the data from the cache, but there's a background request. It is opposite to fresh data. Fresh data is fresh. So you can always rely on it from the cache, and there's no network request will be made. So that is different. And we look into the code again. I know it's a lot of code, but how do you make data fresh? By introducing stale time. Stale time is essentially how long in milliseconds the data will be fresh. So here I put it as 30 seconds. 30 seconds. And then we look into the demo again. And in the demo, you see I had the list. I go in, I had one API call. Right, that's one, that's fine. I go back to the list. So now there's no extra network request because it is within that 30 seconds. So it is considered as fresh. So sure, I get from the cache, it is still within that time. I will not make an additional request because of the rule you set. And I just show you again. So with the new thing, in the dev tool, it shows you that the data is fresh. So that's how you can debug it. And then yeah, just give you a comparison. That one is like with stale time and without. So without is we always go into stale. This tab, I hope it's clear. At the end, you can see. Sure, thanks. And then just having cache data is going to open a lot of possibilities. So here I search for Copen. You see there's API icon. I search for Mammo. Yeah, sure, there's another API icon. And then I search for Copen again. Is it? That's how I do. And then I search for Mammo again. And as you can, and you notice, I do it 4 times. But there's only 2 API requests. Because I was repeating the keyword. And then because I set it as a key, so it can be able to get it from the cache. And then I don't have to get it again. And then this kind of data is usually stay for very long. You get it, that's it just doesn't change. You save like at least 2-3 seconds for the user. Simply because you had a cache data. Right. Another one. This one is tricky because we had a slider, and as you dragging, it needs to make an API call to the server to calculate the point. That is a complicated process. And each API call is take about 3 seconds. That was really long. But as you had the data and then you drag it again, which is a very normal interaction, you were gonna check and then you're gonna kind of deciding and you're gonna go back again. So if you don't have cache data, which means you need to make an API call request again. Then the user, we need to wait for another 2 seconds. Why you already had this kind of data on the client. And then depends on how fast it is refreshing. For our use case, it's like 3 minutes. 3 minutes is enough. You know, it's like you want to interact with it and you want to move on. But within that 3 minutes, you're going to do the same thing. And sure, you had the data. Right? Simply, just because of the cache, it does have a lot. But where is this like, instant experience? Like, I never seen it. Because that's the title of the second section, like instant experience. And okay, that's the code again. I'll just make sure. Now we see the code again. That's a long code, so stay with me. So here, we introduce something we call initial data. And it's like a property. And it's like a function. It's going to return something. And essentially, you're going to say, okay, when I try to fetch a detailed stuff, I will, first of all, look for the cache for the listing detail that I had. Right? If you had something, you had it, then sure, I'm going to take it from the cache. I'm going to try to find using my ID. And then if you have it, you want to return. I think it's, okay, I didn't do an animation, but at the end you had the data, right? You return it. And if data is something truthy, it's like there's an object or it's not just undefined, then the query function doesn't have to trigger. It has some stuff, especially when you are comparing it with stale time. Like, the data stay fresh, and then I had it on the cache. So just take it from there. I will not do an additional API request. And I put it like 30 seconds. So that when what I've been trying to say from the section number 2 is like, I had only one API call, as you can see, only one, okay? One for the listing. Only one. Just repeat it. I go into detail because I can find the stuff on the cache. So you notice that there's no additional data being made at all. There's only one. I know it is not happening in own situation, but in this kind of CIUD, yeah, sure. I mean, in most of the case, that's how it is. And then you will feel it's fast again. It's just like the normal, the one that we showed early on, the one from Twitter, when you click, it's there, right? Because it is there, so it feels fast. It is instant. So the key takeaway here is like when you are incorporating caching into your application, it does help. You just need to have an easy way to do it, and the easier way, use a library. And we move to the last one. We call it optimistic update. And so optimistic update, you're familiar. It is gonna assume that the action will be success, and then you let the user move on. As simple as that. You make an API call, when it is not yet finished, you assume that it's going to be success, and then you do something about it. And I still have 10 minutes, so I think we're good. Classic example. You go in, you need to accept a certain term and condition. Okay, all good? You're going to tick the box, and you click accept. And then that's usually what I do. I want to keep the model there. Right. I'm not sure if it's clear enough. I'll just show you the next one. Okay, I show you again. Maybe it's not clear enough. Right. You click the button. The button changes into the loading state, and then it waits until it finishes. It's normal. I get it's normal. But then notice how at the end, it was like about 2 seconds. You need to wait for it, and you couldn't redo anything. And you know that actually accepting a term and condition is not super crucial. It is like the user should need to say, I'm okay. Can you just let me to use the application, essentially? And the code is super simple, actually. I'm going to show you. So I'm going to rely on something like that. You don't need to understand the code. Essentially, it's trying to say, when this Boolean is false, showing the model. And then you let the user accepting the term and condition. Right? When it is false. When it is true, and sure, you don't have to show it again. And that is how we do it with optimistic update. So we're kind of flipping the experience. So this one needs you to play a bit closely. I should try to talk through first. Like as you click the button, the model will be hidden immediately. And then the API request will be pending. It's still making the update to the server, but the UI will be hidden immediately so that the user can start to move on with other process. Right, so let's see. I check, I click, it's gone. And then it takes the same 2 seconds. I know it is not super intuitive, so I make a comparison. Now, okay, pay attention. Left side is the old one, right side, I think the new one. About 2 seconds. You check. Right. So the right side, you notice immediately is closed. And the left side is closed after 2.3 seconds. Does it do like second help a lot? Maybe not. In a normal use case. Sorry, it had to be at the end. Otherwise, we're running short term. That is how it looks when it is ongoing. Right? On the left side, you kind of showing it. On the UI, on the right side, it's gone. And then you might ask, actually, what if it's fail? What if it's fail? What can I do about it? Because you hidden it immediately. So that is where, okay, we see, right, now because we are making an API code, so we call it like, no, not API code. We're making a chain on the server, so now we call it a mutation. It's not a very familiar term before. I don't know when it is very popularized, maybe in the last 5 years. But now we made a mutation. And then I made a put request. Right? You don't need to get like super detailed. So I made the put request, and then I had this a function called onMutate, which means as I am making the request, you do something about it in parallel. So what I'm trying to do here is like, essentially I'm gonna set the Boolean to true. Obviously there's a lot more. There's an ID, there's some stuff, but you don't need to care about. Essentially I wanted to set it to true. Okay, I highlight it so that it's clear. I hope you see it clearer. Then I go down and say, okay, get me the old data. So you had the Boolean false because the model is showing. Then you go down and say, I want to merge them together. So like false and true, and then now you had true, essentially. And because of that, you're gonna hide the model immediately. That's simple. Because you rely on this Boolean to display in the model in the first place. So now it is true, then it's gone. Simple like that. I hope it's clear. I know it's a lot of code, so thanks for staying with me. But you are going to return the old data. And I know that is a question you might have. You return the old data so that in case it is failed, you can revert back to the previous state. And what I mean by that, right, is like if it's failed, you set it back to false again. And that's how it looks in practice. I click, I block the API request, it is gone, and it's come back again. With like an error. So that you are okay, right? It's like, sure, it's I mean, we assume this kind of failing doesn't happen that often, right? It could be for, let's say, the last 2% of the user, maybe like 95% go through, 5% left. So you get the good experience for this 95%. That's more important. When it has good connection, when our server is okay, not when our server is down. Simply like that. And then I'm gonna show you one extreme example. Right? Like that, like no one is gonna do a chat app like that. Right? You click, you wait for this button to spin. And then you send another message. Cannot. Because you're still waiting for it to finish. It is, you never seen anyone build this chat app like that. Why? Because it's slow. Like you don't wait for stuff. When the expectation from the user is like, can you just, just try to send it somehow? They don't let me wait. And then that's a normal, like experience that we see. You are, typing something, you're trying to send it, say sending. If it's failed, you see the button, you click to retry. But essentially the idea is like, okay, just keep going. Let it running. Simple like that. Like we use it a lot, like we have WhatsApp, we have Messenger. All is using the same principle. It's just when in our day-to-day, maybe it's not that obvious. We don't really build chat app. But definitely you can see the accept model is one of the use cases that you can take advantage of. And I believe there's a lot more. There's a lot more. You just need to know about that, right? So I was actually doing this comparison. So just let's look into it again. So yeah, you see on the right side, yeah, it goes so fast. Yeah. You can kind of feel like, oh, I already sent like 5 messages. On the left side, are you still at 3? So I think that is about it for use optimistic. So this one, you don't have to use query. You can manually implement it, but it's going to be a bit complicated. So you could use something like use optimistic in React 19. Now it's available. So you are upgrading to React 19, you can use it. I had a demo here somewhere. Actually, at the end, I share you the demo that I built just now using React. And essentially that optimistic update. Right. They call it optimistic because it's like you are trying to present the information immediately. You should assume that, that action, whatever it is going to be succeed. And then you're actually performing it in the background. It takes some time. And in this case, you can kind of see that everything is the same. It's just the UI behaving differently. Like the server API response time is the same, exactly the same. But you might feel it faster. Because again, it is subjective. But hopefully from all the examples, you can see the impact of all these small changes. And with that, we are coming very close to the end. So we talk about 3 things, I hope you remember. The first thing is loading spinner. The second one, instant data. Like you just had the cache, you're gonna get the user move along. Lastly, optimistic update. You kind of make it instant as well, even though it is not. It's not at all. It is still taking some time, but you make it feel like it is instant. And all of this goal to make the wait feel shorter is actually not from tech. It's actually from psychology. So as you can see in this paper, when I was not even born, was it 95? It's 85. Here. I was born in 92. So I was not even born. I read it recently. There's this part. Okay, I think I go too fast. But no one likes to wait. It is frustrating. It actually is psychology. No one likes to wait. You go to the bar, you want to order a drink, and then in the bar there's no one. So you were wondering why the bartender today takes so long? Because there's one reason. There's occupied time will feel shorter than unoccupied time. As you move along, there's something there's music in the bar, there's people talking, so you don't feel that 5 minutes was long. But there's only you and the bartender. You feel maybe next time I go to another bar. Things simple. And this principle, occupied time, feels shorter than unoccupied time. But what we look into the spinner, you need to have something. Right? It's you need to have something to kill the time. And then as you show some hint, maybe it's help, maybe not. But most likely it's win. There's another one. Okay, I'm 38 minutes. I think I'm still be on time. Another one. The user want to start something right away. People want to get started. And then that is where our instant experience was playing a big part. You show the cache data first. Let them going. And then optimistic, take it a bit further. Letting the user move on immediately while we're still waiting. So actually we are not really removing anything at all. We're actually not removing the wait. We just make it feel differently. And I hope it makes a difference. Here's what's happening when you don't handle waiting well, right? People tend to say it is slow, that's obvious. But they can say it's boring. There's nothing to do with, long loading time. It's confusing. They can say it's frustrating. That is the real danger of slowness. It kind of changes the perception that you had about something. Because it is slow, you can complain about different things. And so, what we can do to make our product feel smart when it isn't? We actually look into it today through 3 things. First thing, smart loading spinner. You're delaying them when it is fast, or you was engage them, show something. Next thing, we're giving the user the cache data right away. It really helps. And lastly, optimistic update. So we assume that the succeed and let the user move on. So all of this doesn't change the network condition at all. It's only change how it feels. And I hope you are gonna take at least one of the techniques today and then try in your application. It doesn't require a lot of refactoring, I believe, I hope. And then make the web feel faster for the user. And with that, wow, that's it. Thank you so much. Tack.